Thank you very much for being part of the conversation happening now on social media and also here in studio. And the question is Kenya at crossroads? Is Kenya at crossroads? Is it time for a genuine conversation? Are we getting worse as a country? Are we going towards the right direction? KTN has put up a poll on X, and of course shortly I'll be taking in the results of that poll. But even as we do, allow me to introduce in studio Senator of Bomet County, Senator Hillary Kiprotich Sigei. I know they hardly call you Kiprotich Wakili, but welcome to the studios.
Thank you very much, Doris. They actually call me Wakili. If you go to Bomet and ask about Hillary Sigei, chances are that you'll be told we don't know that person.
All right.
But Wakili is the name that everyone knows. They voted in Wakili as the senator. And that's by the way, but I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to be back in the studio. And thank you for hosting me tonight. Kenya is at crossroads.
Is it?
It's a bit sensational.
All right.
That description is a bit sensational. I don't think we're at crossroads.
Why don't you think we're at crossroads? Why do you think that particular description is sensational?
Crossroads is a bit sensational because it depicts a position where we are lost as to which way to go. We are at the point, we are at an intersection, sort of, and we've got A and B direction to go, and we don't know where to go. I don't think that is where we are. We are focused, though there could be so many challenges on the sidelines. And so it is not really the description of the moment, in my view.
In your view?
Yes.
Now you say this, even though we have, reports of alleged increase in abductions. We saw 3 women reports of the autopsy of how they were seriously and brutally murdered surfacing. We're talking about a missing MCA in Wajir, whose body was alleged to be found, and then of course the autopsy reports declared it was not really him. That is Yusuf Ahmed. So in that, we're still looking for him. This is what is happening in the country. Now, look at the Adani deal. Look at the cost of energy. Look at what is happening in the corridors of justice. And as far as the second in command is concerned, and Kenyans are asking, is the senator being genuine that with just challenges and we are just not really at crossroads?
I am being honest, and brutally honest for that matter, because, as a government, Doris, there are so many things happening. You've just mentioned a few. You've mentioned about the justice system with regards to the situation or the position of the deputy president. You've talked about the Adani deal with the Kenya Airports Authority and JKI. You've talked about the disappearances. Those are just 3 or 4 of the millions of things happening. The flip side of it, if you were to allow me, is a commentary on the probably positive ends. There is unity of purpose.
Unity of purpose.
In terms of Kenyans. In terms of leadership, we've got a broad-based government. In terms of things positive happening, we have got the KEPSEA, that is the first cohort of CBC grade 6 students going on well. There is peace in the country.
There is peace in the country.
So much, of course, yes. So there is so much that is happening. The thing that I would say is that, you see, negative news sells because everyone decries negative story. I included. I decried awareness. I don't like negative stories.
All right.
That is why it's coming out to be the thing, yet it is not necessarily the real thing. But otherwise, of course, there are those things which are happening, which not all of us are happy. Not every Kenyan is happy when our own brothers and sisters disappear. Our leaders are not at that best level to make the best for the people of Kenya in the offices they are in, and the rest of the challenges that come. I mean, that is the position.
Now, Wakili, you have mentioned that negative news sells.
Yes.
I'm not sure where that is pointing at. But let me get this quote on corruption by Pratibha Patil, who said, "Corruption is the enemy of development and of good governance." I'll take you back home in the county of Bomet, because the Kenyans are tasking me to then ask your position on this matter. The Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission has cast its nets wider on the 1.5 billion shilling saga involving officials Wakili officials at the county government,
Yes.
that is of Bomet, accused of alleged embezzlement of funds through fraudulent awards of tenders and conflict of interest. I engage you not as a Wakili now, but as a senator who stands firmly in defense of devolution and oversight. Are you aware of this scandal?
Doris, thank you. I watched the clip.
All right.
I read the newspaper story earlier on in the morning. As a representative of the people of Bomet, the description I could give to what's happening in terms of corruption level is that Bomet is a crime scene. Why? Because it is not only what has been reported. There is so much. That's just the tip of the iceberg, I would say. Because as a senator, I'm oversighting the county government of Bomet alongside the county assembly. That is the members of the county assembly. That's my role. Besides the other two roles, the major one, I would say, in the context of your question, is oversight. And what EACC has done, we've been involved in this before. We have called upon the governor in a number of occasions to appear before the CPAC and CPI committees. He's also appeared before the education committee. He's appeared before the education committee. He's appeared before the health committee on, among others, the ones which have been reported. 1.5 billion is what EACC now has reported to be their following. Out of that 1.5 billion, which is lost as of now, 373 involves what they described as purchase of equipment or machinery for purposes of road construction and all that. But the information that we do have, because as a senator, I have a lot of information. Part of this we have submitted to EACC to facilitate the investigation leading to what they have done. And so it is yes, a crime scene. And a number of people, the 8 or so of them who've been arrested, recorded statements and have been released, is just the beginning of the process. Because as a matter of fact, Doris, the quote that you just read out describes exactly how, as a leader, you wouldn't want your representatives to suffer. You, at the national level, like me, I push for additional allocation of resources to the county. But when it gets into the county and is abused by those who are in the executive, it is very painful. And the buck stops at the office of the governor. The people who've been arrested there are CCMs and COs. They've recorded statements, investigations are ongoing. We also must make people to account. So such people in office, including the governor, in fact, are candidates for impeachment because they have failed. They have actually abetted the crimes which this team have already now been got. You can imagine 121 companies which have been used to siphon county resources.
And a lot of Kenyans just come out to say, well, we like the kind of passion we're seeing the Senate speaking with, but they're also saying they appreciate that you're mentioning that there is some action that is underway. But Senator, we'll follow that up with you because that begs my question on how much resources Kenyans lose to either the executive or, of course, leadership that is supposed to be protecting these resources. And there has been a conversation about, when we have donated our power to you in leadership, how do you manage that particular power, the resources, including the limit or term limit you're in office? Would it make a difference, Senator, if you were given more time in office? All right, I'm coming to the term limit conversation. As a senator, would it make any difference to have some more time in office, say 7 years per term?
Doris, you're being very nice in your question. You're being so modest in asking that question. But I'll come to that in a short while. Let me just then say it is not one of the things that Senate, for example, enjoys when they get negative publicity. But we do try our best whenever something comes before the House. By the way, in the Senate, and this is one of the things that over time, I'm a first-time senator. I have really experienced a lot in terms of the debate, in terms of how business is being transacted in the House, in terms of the engagement. There is that liberal appreciation of individual perspective on how to deal with issues, how to interact. And me, I sit also in the speaker's panel. Once in a while, I get to control the House, and
yes,
you appreciate the engagement from the members on issues. Well, we come from 2, 3, 4, 5 different political divides, but when it comes to issues, especially with regards to protecting devolution, pushing for resources for the county governments, we have been speaking in one voice, because at the end of the day, we want to push as much resources to the counties. The most unfortunate thing is the incidences like what we are seeing in Bomet County in that story, where you've pushed. The other day, we rejected the National Assembly's reduction of county allocation of revenue, and the bill has now been sent for mediation. Why? Because we are saying we should get more resources taken to the counties.
All right.
The wheels of justice are generally slow, but when institutions and agencies involved in fighting corruption like EACC, DCI, among others, at least start doing something like what they've done in Bomet, at least people can have some faith. But for the Senate, we are doing our best. We are pushing the limits where necessary. Now, the issue on term limits.
Yes.
Honestly speaking, if I can't do what I have been given to do in 5 years, 2 years will not help. If I have been unable to do the responsibility as a senator for the term I've been given of 5 years, adding me 2 years will not make sense. And so my personal view is that we've got people, various views. On last week, as I've told you, I chaired the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee of the Senate. There is a bill that was brought in by Senator Fonandi, Senator Sigei,
right,
on, among other things, the extension of the term limit, or rather, yes, expansion of term limit from 5 to 7 of members of parliament, senators, presidency, members of county assembly. And the bill itself is a constitutional amendment bill. It has got 33 clauses. Out of 33 clauses, one of them is the extension of the term limit from 5 to 7. And we had a public participation forum last Friday in the KICC.
All right.
We had received as JLAC and Senate 24,000 emails on Kenyans commenting about, among others, the extension of term limit. And they all said no.
Okay.
So my view then,
You're saying most of them
99%, I would say. The only unfortunate thing is that out of these 24,000 or so comments that crashed our email, by the way, they commented largely on the clause that deals with extension of term limit.
All right.
Which means that rubbed the wrong way the Kenyan people. And our committee is going through those views. We will analyze them. We will retreat and do a report. And as a matter of fact, I told the people who participated and the rest of the Kenyans that we will listen to the voice of Kenyans in our report.
Now, here's the question. When is the report coming to us? And as far as I'm concerned,
yes,
you're taking a recess very soon. So, and also, you ought to have started maybe on 25th December, if that was a possibility.
Yes,
but when are we expecting this report? Because in as far as Kenyans now concerned,
yes,
they feel like there's a lot of dragging feet around national issues. So which one, when do we expect this? In 2025?
No, on this one, no.
Right.
JLAC is one of the committees that has been voted to be the most efficient in the Senate. Actually, if there was a trophy to have been given, we would have gotten it. In the last session, we got a commentary from the Speaker, we got a commentary from the Majority Leader, from the rest of the senators, and so I can assure you and Kenyans that we will give you the report before we go on recess.
All right.
Because we want to progress the conversation so that Kenyans know that as Senate, we are doing the job that is supposed to be done in the interest of Kenyans and not in the interest of the legislative arm of government, whether it's the National Assembly or the Senate or the Executive. We want to do it for the people of Kenya, the people who send us to office.
That is very right, because so far this is not the first time we're hearing this conversation. It came, it disappeared somehow, and within Kenyans' conversations, and it is reappearing again. And it's important for clarity for Kenyans to understand nothing is being done behind, using the back door.
And probably to clarify, so that at least Kenyans can understand. This was a private member's bill.
All right.
This is actually a private member's bill sponsored by an individual senator. It is not a government bill.
All right.
It is not a bill by the committee. It's not a bill by the Senate. And that is why you've subjected to that process. Then the conversation previously that had come out is with regards to the NADCO report. Remember the bipartisan team and then the NADCO report, which is it's work in progress. We are actually at the moment processing the report of the NADCO committee. We have done a number of bills. We've done already the IEBC bill, which is it's already law, and that is why the selection panel is in place. There was only an issue with regard to the nominee from the Azimio group that had been taken to court. The court last week did pronounce itself, and they gave 48 hours for a nominee to be presented so that IEBC commission can be set. The other bills have already been processed. They are in various stages in court. So this one is the one that is sponsored by a private member, and we will process it in the normal legislative process. And as I said, I am undertaking to give to the Kenyans the report before we go on recess.
Before you go on recess. Very important. Yes. Now, before we let you go, I will not run away from this question, and it was now a big question today. And I'll ask you as a sitting senator, as a Kenyan, and as a Wakili, do you think the government is doing enough as far as dealing with security issues, including abductions, is concerned? What is your view and observation this far? Are you doing enough? If I put you in that, because you're a sitting senator. I decry disappearance of individuals, whether criminals or otherwise. As a lawyer, as a human rights person in terms of practice and related to law, I decry that. As a Kenyan still, I do decry that disappearance. Whether it's enforced, whether it's on criminals or anything, it is not. The Constitution actually protects life. It's one of those things that you cannot say we have got to compromise. The government is doing the best it can. The only difference, Doris, which I know is a bit sensational, let me use the term, is a situation where there is a lot of transparency at the moment in terms of what goes on in government. Every small thing that is done, it is available for the people of Kenya to know what's going on. Whether it is purchase of motor vehicles, whether it is the First Lady's office doing this, whether it's the presidency, whether it's Bunge doing this. But Wakili, allow me to interject. You're saying there's a lot of transparency. Does it come with the outcry of Kenyans? Are you forced to be transparent?
No.
Are Kenyans going to have to scream about deals for transparency to actually be transparent?
No. Actually, it's the other way around. In the process of now letting Kenyans know what the government is doing, with the freedom that we do have, Kenya is a democratic state. Kenyans, in their social media pages, I'm sure you've seen some of them would abuse even the president and their leaders. And it's their right to do so. And
is it their right? Because the concerns that are reaching our desk is that, we are looking at the alleged disappearance of Maverick Aoko. She was
that is
very
still
loud.
not confirmed?
It's alleged. It's alleged.
Oh, yeah, sure.
We also have the activist Boniface Mwangi, who was actually arrested at his home
and has been released.
Has been released when he made his remarks, and he actually slept. He spent a night in the cell. So this is clear that he was abducted.
No.
Arrested.
Don't use the term abduction.
Which one should
use
I
the term arrest, because the police have released him. And it's now a subject, I believe, I haven't really gone through it in details to understand what was the reason, the status of the investigations, because the moment you've been arrested, there must be a reason. By the way, our police
allegedly, Wakili, due to remarks he made on social media about a charity race in Nairobi. That's the information I have here. I'm bringing this up because you said Kenyans are very bold on social media.
They're very bold,
and that we're a democracy.
They're very bold.
Okay.
Yes.
So,
if you were to look at my social media page, for example, I'm not a very active one, but I always, in the trend of what goes on in terms of Kenyans responding, particularly those from Bomet, the number of those who abuse me, if I was to feel like they are going beyond the border, I would be a madman. But it is part of the freedom that we enjoy being a democratic state, being a government that is run with Kenyans feeling and enjoying the freedom that the Constitution has given them. And so, when such discussions go on our various social media pages, there are some that go beyond, because there is a law also that protects on abuse. There is also a law that also protects the data as to the source and everything. And sometimes when now one is put in to answer, is asked to go and explain, on the one hand, people will say you've been arrested because the government is gagging you from commenting. On the other hand, the government is also equally protecting the rights of other Kenyans. Remember, when we speak about the freedom, the freedom of an individual, of one individual, or rather the right of one individual, ends at the point of the right of the other. You want your privacy to be protected. You want your data to be protected. But at the same time, I am entitled to also comment on something, and in the process, now there is a point where the rights, your rights and my rights converge, and then there is a departure point. So the departure point in most cases would be the situations where one is arrested to explain, and that is why most of the time you find them being arrested. Probably their gadgets to be checked on the source of information, the source of data, and the following morning when it's established that, look, this was a normal Kenyan who is agitating for the rights of others and his, you get released without being charged.
Now, I want to close that conversation, but within that particular, arrest, that doesn't mean whoever is suspected should be ripped of his dignity.
But of course.
I'm referring to the story of one Bob Njagi, who shared his ordeal and said 30 days or 32 days in darkness, fed, no human interaction. Has this reached your attention? Is this something you might speak to at this point in time? Not,
but to some extent I would say in understanding the reason why an individual is being arrested. Remember, the Constitution says, or rather the law, let me not make reference to the Constitution, as
we wrap up.
Kenyan here, I am arrested. The law requires the police to take me before a court of law within prescribed timelines.
Right.
There are times where the police will go before the courts and ask for more time. Such case, for instance, because I know as a matter of fact, no Kenyan would be arrested for more than 30 days and nobody knows where they are and they have not been taken before a court of law. It could be that they were arrested and the police went to court, asked for permission, so to speak, to retain such a person in custody to facilitate investigations. Because by the time you are arrested, by the way, Doris, there is suspicion sufficient enough to warrant an arrest.
Well, the thing is, even as we conclude, Wakil, I wish we had 2 more hours. There is arrest, then there is kidnap, and then there is abduction. What exactly is happening in the country? Is it arrest? Is it abductions? Maybe for another day, but that is a conversation.
But for those cases that gets out to the public, it's obviously an arrest. Only that investigations could still be something pending, and the police always can continue to hold you in custody as they conclude on the investigations. But in most cases, then, they must do so courtesy of a court directive.
Court directive.
Yes.
Now, Koichi Haraguchi said, we want to move even a step forward towards resolving the abduction issue. So if there's one, we need to move a step forward. Now, the Deputy President's impeachment trial is in court. You are representing the Senate, or in whichever capacity I saw you in the courts. What are we expecting tomorrow? He's gone ahead to appeal the recusal, application, position of the 3-judge bench. Perhaps just as you give us a legal closing remark to what to expect tomorrow. Will we proceed then?
I'll limit my comment on it because it's what they call it in law sub judice. But that is the beauty of a democracy, by the way. It's the beauty of a democracy is what is going on now in Kenya. The National Assembly did what they were supposed to do under the Constitution. The Senate, being a trial chamber, did subject the Deputy President to a trial and they voted to impeach him. The Deputy President exercised his right in law. He's in court. Tomorrow, we are appearing before the 3-judge bench to argue the application by the respondents to set aside the ex parte orders that were granted when the Deputy President went in court in Kerugoya. But there are several consolidated petitions. So we look forward to appearing tomorrow before the judges and argue out the case. And they pronounce themselves at that date they will set. And that is the beauty of freedom and democracy and the rule of law. Because Kenya, I believe, and I know, because of out of experience I've had now for the short time I've been in a public office. It is ruled by the law. It is ruled by the law.
Now, one thing you said, though I will not go back to it as we close and take the front page of the paper, is that the wheels of justice are slow. I hope they can move faster.
Well, yes, it is actually the prayer. For me, for instance, the issue about Bomet, we've been dealing with this thing for the last 2 years when I got into office because some of the cases are beyond but there is hope, and the hope is what we are seeing now. But we look forward to a time when wheels of justice will move faster. We need to add resources to judiciary. We need to automate most of the things that we do. We need to support the investigative arms of the government. We need Kenyans to cooperate when it comes to, and everybody else to play their role in the justice sector to enhance speed in resolution of disputes.
Thank you very much. That is Senator Hilary Kiprotich Sigei, who is the Senator of Bomet County. And of course, according to him, Kenya is not at crossroads. All right. Thank you very much for creating time, Wakili. Now, how about I give you the updates of the front page of the Bold newspaper and what to expect tomorrow. Here is the front page of the Standard tomorrow. Grab a copy for yourself. Top story, main story. How Devani walked free from 7.6 billion shillings Triton scam. That is the main story. Grab a copy for that. And of course, free as the wind. More of that on page 4, including other stories on, is it a Pentagon or second Pentagon inside Ruto's political plan? And matters energy, 7 states that could sway U.S. polls, also covered on the Standard.